Guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be focusing on the second part of my three-part series about King Henry VIII and his 6 wives. In this video, I'll be focusing on Jane Seymour and the Anne of Cleves. And if you guys like this content, I also made a video about the Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to join the family, hit the subscribe button. But without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and hop into the video. The first wife I'll be talking about is Jane Seymour, who was the 3rd wife of King Henry VI and the next Queen of England after Anne Boleyn. She was brought to court to serve as a lady-in-waiting to Anne Boleyn, and they were actually first cousins and shared the same grandmother. Jane Seymour was a lady-in-waiting and served Anne faithfully until around 1537. This is when, unfortunately, Anne suffered her second miscarriage, and this is when King Henry's eyes began to wander. And unlike his previous wives, like the Catherine of Aragon or Anne Boleyn, in which he was attracted to them for both their beauty and their intelligence, something that really attracted Jane Seymour, or attracted the king to Jane Seymour, was her reserved and kind nature. After having 2 wives that were courageous and super strong and had caused a lot of conflict in his kingdom, he was looking for a woman that would serve as not only a faithful counterpart, but would also be more reserved in her position as queen. So sometime after Anne Boleyn's second miscarriage, he actually decided to go ahead and have an undercover affair with Jane Seymour, which actually Anne Boleyn was completely aware of and did not go down without a fight. According to historical records, she actually had plots planned against Jane Seymour in relation or in partnership with her sister-in-law, Lady Rochford, in which they tormented her. But unfortunately, her efforts were unsuccessful. As you know, Anne Boleyn was beheaded, and King Henry actually ended up marrying Jane Seymour 11 days after her beheading. Something that I thought was really interesting about Jane Seymour is that she never officially underwent the coronation toward becoming a queen. A lot of historians believe that King Henry so desperately wanted a son that he wanted to make sure that the next woman who became queen could actually provide him an heir. And lucky for Jane Seymour, in May of 1537, she fell pregnant and actually gave birth to young Edward, and this brought King Henry great joy, as to him, Jane Seymour was able to fulfill his long desired wish of having a male heir, and she was both a quiet and reserved wife, something that he had been looking for in a partner from the very beginning. Edward was born at the Hampton Court Palace, and unfortunately Jane Seymour fell ill and died 9 days later. Apparently she contracted some sort of fever after childbirth, and she's the only wife that was laid in the royal tomb next to King Henry. And unlike all of his previous wives, King Henry went through a period of grieving in which he wore black for 6 months after her death, and he truly grieved her. Most historians believe that this is the true wife that King Henry really loved, because she not only produced him an heir, but was also his equal and was really what he was looking for in a true wife. Something else that I found particularly interesting is that unlike all of his previous marriages, King Henry actually waited until 1540 to remarry, which is a significant period for a king in general, but especially a king who had as many wives as King Henry VI. And I'm kind of debating about how he truly felt about Jane Seymour, but I definitely do believe that in comparison to his love for Anne Boleyn and the Catherine of Aragon, I do believe that he loved Jane Seymour more deeply. I don't know if it was on a more emotional level, or if it was more tied to the fact that she was able to bear him an heir, but I think in terms of his love connection, Jane Seymour was definitely number 1, if not number 2, out of all the 6 wives, in my personal opinion. Next wife I'll be talking about is Anne of Cleves, King Henry's 4th wife and the next Queen of England after Jane Seymour. This was King Henry's shortest marriage, and I also believe his marriage that in which he actually loved his wife the least, just based off the time that they were married and the actual historical interactions or historical recounts of the interactions that they had. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and get into her story. So the Anne of Cleves was proposed as a marriage option to King Henry because of her German descent. At that time, Great Britain wanted to form an alliance between themselves and the Germans, and so having a marriage between the Anne of Cleves and King Henry was considered to be advantageous, and so it was arranged by one of his top advisors, which was Mr. Cromwell at the time. Anne arrived in England in the winter of 1540. King Henry was automatically displeased with the way that she looked in appearance, and apparently, based off like historical documents, he apparently said, "I like her not," and he believed that she looked completely different than the portraits that he had been sent, and he immediately started the proceedings to basically gain a divorce from her because he found her so repulsive and unattractive. And based off historical accounts, she was so unattractive to the point where he did not want to have a male heir with her, and he refused to marry with her for an extended period of time. So in my personal opinion, I feel like that's actually horrendous, and it's really disheartening that he completely discarded a woman solely based off her physical appearance. And even if she didn't abide by the beauty standards at the time, but unfortunately that was the case. In fact, so disgusted with the Anne of Cleves that he actually tried to halt the wedding before it happened, but they were actually ended up getting married in January of 1541. But like I said before, after 6 months, the marriage was over. Something that I found really interesting about the Anne of Cleves, though, is that she was able to leave the marriage with generous land holdings and a good amount of money, and she actually remained good friends with King Henry after their divorce. They were just never romantic interests. And so in comparison to the rest of King Henry's 6 wives, she did come out relatively well, considering the fact that she was able to keep her head and she was alive at the end of their marriage, and she was still considered to be a respected woman. But it still is unfortunate to me that their marriage was so short and that King Henry didn't give her the opportunity, or didn't give himself and her the opportunity to build a true emotional connection, because they could have ended up having a great marriage. But he did divorce her, and after divorcing her, his next wife was Catherine Howard, who we know has a very interesting story. So I'll be covering Catherine Howard and his last wife in my next video, but I hope you guys enjoyed the stories of Jane Seymour and the Anne of Cleves. And if you guys like this video, make sure to hit the like up button, and also leave comments down below just if you have about your own opinions about both of his wives, and about the women themselves, and just kind of about the whole story in general. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll be coming back with part 3 very soon. But I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!